Well, it's after Easter, so we have had the pleasure of celebrating resurrection, and it's a whole shift here for the next 2 weeks that, for me at least, reflects more of a resurrection kind of stream of thought, given the fact that we're no longer wrestling with Wesley's plain account of Christian perfection. And so there's lots of good news this morning. This is Monday. We usually record these on Thursday. And so we've had the weekend to celebrate and sort of recover from Wesley's plain account. But this week we're shifting gears. We're going to be focusing, and I don't know what edition you have, but I have this handy little edition of Wynkoop's book, Foundations. And I'm guessing that all of the other copies, when I looked at different editions, I think it was her book, the page numbers all match, even though there might be different dates. But we're making a very pronounced shift. For the next 2 weeks, all we're going to be reading is Wynkoop and Snyder. And I think you will find it both stimulating and somewhat refreshing, since we'll be reading 20th century English rather than 18th century English, and a little less confusing on some scores, but perhaps more challenging, given the fact that we're going to be examining very, very important distinctions between Calvin's view, which was actually articulated by Beza and those who followed him, and Jacobus Arminius. So I'm looking forward to the shift. And I think one of the things that we're going to be struggling with right away is the question of sovereignty, the full sovereignty of God, and the free will that we exercise, or we believe that we have. And we're dealing with theological concepts as well as philosophical concepts, and trying to understand those in light of the biblical narrative. So it's a little bit liberating, but also a little bit more complicated this week. So how should we approach this whole question of predestination, sovereignty of God, because that's really one of the main issues that are being addressed in that, and our own free will. That's the challenge that we're sort of looking at this week. So, do you have any comments that you'd like to make as we get started?
Just on the predestination piece, for me, it's the challenge is the biblical language talks about us being predestined, and to the distinction that he makes between predestination and double predestination, I think is helpful. I'm not sure who makes that distinction.
Wynkoop?
Yeah, okay, she then.
Yes.
Sorry. I actually, True Confessions, haven't read Wynkoop, so he has and loves the book, and yes. I'm waiting to get to it. It's not very big, so hopefully I'll get there shortly. At any rate, the concept of double predestination was helpful to me to understand the difference between God predestining a way of salvation versus predestining individuals for salvation or damnation,
or not,
as the case may be.
Right.
And then for me, it's really a matter. All of our language and all of our talk is all about us trying to understand the nature of God. Mm-hmm. And so, for me, it boils down to, if God is a God who is going to doubly predestine, some for heaven and some for hell, what does that mean about love? And if God is a God of love, as I understand love to be, and maybe I just don't understand love and sovereignty, because that's always where the conversation goes, I think, at least when I'm talking to people of a Reformed background. It's all something about, well, God is loving and sovereign, and we don't understand how this is love, and that's true. I don't understand how that would be loving. And so maybe my concept of love is incorrect, but that's where this all boils down for me, is what is God like? That's what we're trying. We're all just estimating our language and the semantics around it. But if God is a God who will elect some for damnation, that's a different kind of God than I understand him to be.
So good. Good. Well, and I think this is a good start to the conversation. And as you begin to read Wynkoop in particular, Snyder's reading is focused on Wesley's view of the church, and there's really no questions pertaining to that, but that might be something that you take note of. But really we're going to be focusing on Wynkoop. And so this is just a good start to that conversation. Hopefully it will provide a launch pad for you as you begin wrestling with what she has to say there. And we'll discover together this week through our discussion some of the very important distinctions that set the stage of distinction between those of us who are more of a Wesleyan mindset. So hopefully these next 2 weeks will be very helpful in that regard. And I'm looking forward to the discussion. Have really enjoyed the discussion, by the way, this past 2 weeks, even though it's been pretty difficult reading. So thank you for your comments, and we'll look forward to seeing you later this week through the threaded discussion.